In this video, we honor 4 extraordinary women who made history through their courage, intelligence, and boldness. And the first one is
Catherine the Great is an iconic figure of unparalleled fame in history. She was an empress like no other, a Russian ruler from the late 18th century who managed to usher in an era of great progress and prosperity for her nation. Her leadership and reforms have gone down in history as legendary. Astonishingly, she achieved so much during her tenure with her remarkable intelligence, ambition and astute political acumen. In this remarkable journey, we will take you through the life of Catherine the Great, from her obscure upbringing to ultimately ascending to being Empress of Russia. It is a story that leaves one awestruck. We will also examine how she used her political acumen to bring about sweeping changes in Russia's laws and institutions during her reign. Catherine the Great managed to gain control via a rebellion against her own husband, Emperor Peter III. She was truly awe-inspiring, managing to obtain the backing of the military and other powerful figures in Russian court. And, before long, she was crowned Empress in 1762. It truly is amazing. Catherine the Great made a massive impact on Russia, introducing reforms such as forming a commission to create a new legal code, improving education and cultural activities, and improving public amenity. She stunned everybody when she established a fresh system of regional governance, plus abolished torture and the death penalty. Catherine the Great, an avid supporter of the Enlightenment period, kept in contact with a number of notable intellectuals such as Voltaire and Diderot during this time. She was renowned for her passion in art, literature and science, and did her part to advance education and culture in Russia. Throughout her lifetime, Catherine the Great had an extensive romantic life, involving a few of her courtiers and even some political figures. Undoubtedly, the most renowned partnership she formed was with Grigory Potemkin, a remarkable warrior and politician who made huge contributions during her reign. Catherine the Great is renowned in history as one of the most influential leaders in Russia. Her reign left a lasting impact on modernizing and reforming the country. She is renowned for her outstanding intellect and her dedication to promoting the advancement of art and science. Her birth and parentage provide essential information about her. On 1729, Sophie Friederike was born in Stettin, Prussia. Catherine the Great began her journey to greatness here. Astonishingly, her parents were Christian August, Prince of Anhalt-Zerbst, and Joanna Elizabeth of Holstein-Gottorp. Sophie had a privileged upbringing and was gifted with knowledge of German language, literature and religion. She was truly blessed. At the tender age of 15, she was chosen by Empress Elizabeth of Russia to be the wife of her nephew, Peter III. After converting to the Russian Orthodox faith and taking the name Catherine, she married Peter in 1745 and moved to Russia. Although her marriage to Peter was unhappy, Catherine remained in Russia and learned the language and customs of the country. After Peter became emperor in 1761, Catherine orchestrated a coup against him and took the throne in 1762. She ruled as Empress of Russia until her death in 1796, overseeing significant modernization and expansion of the Russian Empire. Catherine the Great's greatest achievement was her territorial expansion of the Russian Empire, which included parts of Poland, the Crimea, and Alaska. She was well educated and had a passion for learning. She spoke several languages and was particularly interested in the arts, literature, and philosophy. Catherine had 4 children, although only one, her son Paul, survived to adulthood and went on to become Emperor of Russia. Catherine the Great died on November 17, 1796, at the age of 67. The exact cause of her death is not known, but it is believed that she suffered a stroke or heart attack. Catherine the Great had many enemies throughout her reign, including political rivals, rebellious nobles, and religious groups who opposed her policy. Catherine the Great was a patron of the Enlightenment and corresponded with many important thinkers of the time, including Voltaire and Diderot. She was interested in promoting education and culture in Russia and implemented several Enlightenment-inspired reforms. Catherine the Great was involved in several wars during her reign, including the Russo-Turkish War, the Polish-Lithuanian War, and the Russo-Swedish War. She had several love affairs throughout her life, including with several of her courtiers and political figures. Catherine the Great maintained her power through a combination of political savvy, military strength, and public support. She was able to balance the interests of different groups and maintain the loyalty of her supporters. Catherine the Great's legacy is one of significant modernization and expansion of the Russian Empire, as well as a patron of the arts and science. She is remembered as one of the most important figures in Russian history and as a powerful female ruler who broke gender barriers. It is difficult to say whether Catherine the Great was pretty, as beauty standards and perceptions of physical appearance vary widely across time and culture. However, there are numerous contemporary portraits of her that show her as a regal and commanding figure with strong facial features and an imposing presence. Peter III was born in 1728 and was the grandson of Peter the Great. He became Emperor of Russia in January 1762, after the death of his aunt, Empress Elizabeth. However, his reign was short-lived as Catherine led a coup against him just 6 months later and took the throne for herself. Peter III was not known for his accomplishments as emperor, as his reign was only a few months long. However, he did make some controversial decisions during his time in power, such as withdrawing from the 7 Years' War and expressing admiration for Prussia, which was seen as unpatriotic by many Russians. He also made enemies among the powerful nobility and military leaders, which likely contributed to his downfall. After Catherine took the throne, Peter III was imprisoned and later died under mysterious circumstances, with some historians speculating that he may have been assassinated. While Peter III's accomplishments as emperor were limited, his brief reign and overthrow by Catherine marked a significant turning point in Russian history and paved the way for Catherine's long and influential rule. Catherine the Great did not remarry after the death of her husband, Peter III. Although she had several lovers and love affairs throughout her life, she did not enter into a formal marriage with any of them. She remained single after becoming Empress of Russia in 1762 and ruled as a powerful female monarch until her death in 1796. Catherine the Great was involved in several wars during her reign as Empress of Russia. Please comment to let me know if this video needs changes. Subscribe. One of her most significant military campaigns was the Russo-Turkish War of 1768 to 1774, which resulted in Russia gaining control of territories along the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. Catherine also intervened in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth during the late 18th century, leading to the partitioning of Poland between Russia, Prussia, and Austria. Additionally, Catherine was involved in the Russo-Swedish War of 1788 to 1790, which resulted in Russia gaining control of parts of Finland. She was a skilled military leader who used her army to expand the Russian Empire and solidify her own power. Catherine the Great was raised as a Lutheran by her mother, but she later converted to Eastern Orthodox Christianity upon her marriage to Peter III. Although Catherine publicly supported the Russian Orthodox Church and was a patron of religious institutions, she was also known for her liberal views on religion and her interest in Enlightenment philosophy. Catherine believed in religious tolerance and supported the rights of minority religious groups in Russia, such as Jews and Muslims. She also corresponded with prominent Enlightenment thinkers, many of whom were critical of organized religion. While Catherine the Great was a practicing Orthodox Christian and supported the Russian Church, she was also influenced by the Enlightenment and had a more nuanced and liberal view of religion than many of her contemporaries. Catherine the Great died on November 17, 1796, at the age of 67. She suffered a stroke while sitting on the toilet and was found unconscious by her servant. Despite the efforts of her doctors, she never regained consciousness and died the following day. Her death was a shock to the Russian people and led to a period of mourning throughout the country. Catherine's body was embalmed and placed in a silver coffin, which was interred in the Peter and Paul Cathedral in St. Petersburg, where many of the Russian Tsars and Tsarenas are buried. Catherine the Great's popularity among the Russian people fluctuated throughout her reign, and opinions of her were divided. On the one hand, Catherine was admired for her political and military achievements, her support of the arts and sciences, and her efforts to modernize and westernize Russia. She was also seen as a strong and capable ruler who was able to navigate the complex and often treacherous politics of the Russian court. On the other hand, Catherine was criticized for her authoritarian tendencies and her treatment of serfs and other marginalized groups. She presided over a system of serfdom that kept millions of peasants in bondage, and she ordered brutal crackdowns on peasant uprisings and other forms of dissent. She had a lavish lifestyle, and her many love affairs were seen by some as scandalous and immoral. While Catherine the Great had both supporters and detractors among the Russian people, her legacy as a powerful and influential female ruler has endured and continues to fascinate people around the world. What is the quirkiest or weird information that nobody knows? One quirky and lesser-known fact about Catherine the Great is that she was an avid collector of erotic art. She amassed a large collection of sexually explicit sculptures, paintings, and drawings, which she kept in a private room at her palace in St. Petersburg known as the Cabinet of Curiosities. The collection included items from all over the world, and some of the pieces were said to be so graphic that even Catherine's closest confidants were scandalized. It's worth noting, however, that Catherine's interest in erotic art was not entirely unusual for a person of her time and social standing. Many wealthy and powerful individuals in the 18th century collected erotic art as a sign of their sophistication and worldliness. And Catherine's collection was likely seen by her contemporaries as a reflection of her cosmopolitan tastes. Nonetheless, The fact that one of the most powerful women in history had a secret collection of erotic art is certainly a quirky and unexpected detail of her life. Catherine the Great was an enlightened ruler who brought about many changes during her reign in Russia. Her domestic and foreign policies had a major impact on the country's development and stability. Her reforms were focused on improving the lives of her people and strengthening Russia's position in Europe. The legacy of Catherine the Great on Russian society and politics. Catherine the Great was an influential figure in Russian history, leaving a lasting legacy on the country's society and politics. Her reign marked a period of extensive reforms, military conquests, and cultural development. She was known for her strong will and determination to make Russia a great power in Europe. Astonishingly, Catherine's reforms transformed Russia into a powerful European power, modernizing the country and bringing it to the forefront. With her revolutionary reforms, she gave women, serfs and Jews the rights they deserved and vastly improved education and cultural life in the entire nation. Astonishingly, her leadership in battle not only helped expand Russia's boundaries, but also welcomed new cultural perspectives into their nation. The ramifications of these shifts are still felt in Russian society and politics, even now. Astonishingly, Catherine the Great is still remembered fondly as one of the most influential leaders in Russia's history. Her impressive legacy has had
Next we have Joan of Arc, a girl with an
Russia
unstoppable belief
Please
and
subscribe
bravery
and
not
comment.
matched by anyone.
Exploring the life and legacy of Joan of Arc and the historic sites to visit in France. What is the historical context of Joan of Arc's story, and top places to visit for a deeper look into her life? The story of Joan of Arc is one of the most iconic tales in history. Born into a humble family in rural France during the 100 Years' War, her courage and determination have made her an icon of hope and strength throughout history. A reminder to never give up in the face of adversity. France is home to some of the most iconic sites related to Joan of Arc, the legendary French heroine who fought against the English in the 100 Years' War. These places offer a unique insight into her life and legacy. Number 1. In 1412, Joan of Arc was born in Domremy, a small village in northeastern France. Domremy-la-Pucelle. This is the village where Joan of Arc was born and raised. You can visit her childhood home, which is now a museum, as well as the Church of St. Joan of Arc, which was built in her honor. Number 2. In 1425, Joan begins to experience religious visions and hears the voices of saints, including Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret. She was responsible for leading French forces to victory during the 100 Years' War, and is credited with inspiring a nation to reclaim its freedom. Her story is marked by visions and miracles, which have led many to consider her a saint. Joan's visions are believed to have guided her actions, providing her with divine guidance from God. She relied on visions from God that guided her decisions and actions. Joan of Arc's relationship with God was one of total trust. She firmly believed that her mission to drive the English out of France was guided by divine intervention. Number 3. In 1428, the English army invades France during the 100 Years' War, and Joan begins to believe that she has been chosen by God to help expel the English and restore the French king to the throne. Joan of Arc was a legendary French heroine, leading the army to victory against the English in the 100 Years' War. Through her courage and faith, she became an inspiration to millions, and her death became a symbol of hope and perseverance. She is a powerful example of how a single person can change the course of history. Joan of Arc was a remarkable woman who achieved numerous accomplishments in her short life, becoming a symbol of French national pride and unity. Her most important legacy is her dedication to justice and religious faith. She was only 17 years old when she began leading her country's army against the English in the 100 Years' War, and have made her a symbol of strength and resilience even today. Through her sheer determination and faith, she became one of the most influential military leaders of all time. Number 4. In 1429, Chinon. This is where Joan of Arc met with the Dauphin, Charles VII, and convinced him to continue the fight against the English. You can visit the Château de Chinon, where the meeting took place, and learn more about their conversation and its impact on the 100 Years' War. Joan travels to the court of the Dauphin, Charles VII, and convinces him to allow her to lead an army to lift the siege of Orleans. She achieves a decisive victory and becomes known as the Maid of Orleans. Orleans. This is where Joan of Arc played a significant role in the siege of Orleans. You can visit the Place du Martroi, where she led a successful attack against the English, as well as the Joan of Arc Museum and the Orleans Cathedral. What was Joan of Arc's relationship with King Charles VII? Her close relationship with King Charles VII was an integral part of her story and legacy, as it was their alliance that ultimately led to victory against the English forces. If you are enjoying the video, please subscribe to help me grow my channel. By May 1429, Joan of Arc was a remarkable figure in medieval history. Her bravery and determination helped turn the tide of battle, and ultimately resulted in French victory at Orleans. She is remembered for her courage and commitment to French sovereignty. The story of Joan of Arc has captivated hearts and minds for centuries. A young woman who dared to stand up against the English in a time when women were not expected to do so. Her courage and bravery earned her a place in history, culminating in the coronation of Charles VII as King of France at Reims on July 17, 1429. As a result, Joan's name has become synonymous with courage and determination. Number 5. In 1430, Joan is captured by the Burgundians, who sell her to the English. Number 6. In 1431, Rouen. You can visit the site of Joan of Arc's execution, the Joan of Arc Museum, and Rouen Cathedral in France to learn more about her incredible story. In 1431, Joan is put on trial by an ecclesiastical court in Rouen, accused of heresy and witchcraft. She is found guilty and sentenced to be burned at the stake at 19 years of age. From then on, her legacy has endured, inspiring generations to come. Number 7. In 1456, after a lengthy investigation, the Church declares Joan innocent of heresy and canonizes her as a saint. She is remembered as a hero for her role in France's victory against England and her influence on the Catholic Church. Joan of Arc's inspiring story continues to resonate with people today, demonstrating how one person can overcome great odds to fight for their beliefs. From her famous saying, "I am not afraid, I was born to do this," to her timeless advice, "Act, and God will act." Joan of Arc's words are as inspiring today as they were centuries ago. The French people underwent immense suffering with oppressive taxes and religious persecution under a centralized monarchy. Her gender made her a role model for women throughout history, inspiring them with her courage and strength. Joan's legacy has been interpreted in different ways throughout history, reflecting the changing values of various cultures. Number 8. Exploring the history and culture behind Joan of Arc through a museum in France. The historical Jeanne d'Arc Museum in Rouen, France offers an awe-inspiring tribute to the iconic French heroine, set amidst other historical landmarks close to its famous cathedral. Musée Jeanne d'Arc in Rouen is a remarkable museum dedicated to Joan of Arc. Number 9. Joining tours and events that celebrate Joan of Arc's legacy. Visiting the locations of her story is an unforgettable educational experience, giving insight into the time period and her story. If you like this video, please subscribe and like and give your opinion about this video. This story of how a young woman became queen, and it begins in a castle. During political and religious upheaval in England, a child was born that would go on to become a great queen, and one of the country's most celebrated monarchs. So here begins the story of the Virgin Queen. Once upon a time, in the year 1533, a remarkable child was born in Greenwich Palace. Elizabeth I is born to King Henry VIII and his second wife, Anne Boleyn. She would grow up to become one of England's most legendary queens, Elizabeth I. From a very young age, it was clear Elizabeth possessed intelligence, curiosity, and a strong will. As a child, she had a tumultuous upbringing. Her parents, King Henry VIII and Queen Anne Boleyn. Her childhood was anything but easygoing. Sadly, when Elizabeth was just 2 years old, her mother was executed in 1536, and Elizabeth is declared illegitimate. This event had a profound impact on Elizabeth's life. She was separated from her father and declared illegitimate, losing her place in the line of succession. Elizabeth was sent away from the royal court and lived a relatively isolated life. However, she was fortunate to receive an excellent education. She studied a wide range of subjects, including history, languages, mathematics, and politics. Elizabeth's teachers recognized her quick wit and love for learning, nurturing her intellectual growth. As Elizabeth grew older, the political landscape of England changed. Her father remarried, and she gained a half-sister, Mary, and a half-brother, Edward. Both siblings would eventually ascend the throne, but Elizabeth's destiny remained uncertain. Elizabeth's father, King Henry VIII, dies, and her half-brother, Edward VI, ascends to the throne. Edward VI dies, and Elizabeth's half-sister, Mary I, becomes queen. King Edward VI died of tuberculosis on July 6, 1553. At the age of 15, Edward had been King of England since 1547, following the death of his father, King Henry VIII. During his short reign, Edward was a committed Protestant and worked to advance the cause of the English Reformation. He issued a number of religious reforms that promoted Protestantism and sought to reduce the power of the Catholic Church in England. Edward's reign was marked by political instability and religious conflict, as various factions vied for power and influence in his government. After Edward's death, his half-sister, Mary I, succeeded him to the throne and sought to reverse many of his religious reforms, leading to a period of persecution of Protestants known as the Marian persecution. Queen Mary I, also known as Mary Tudor or Bloody Mary, is best known for her efforts to restore Catholicism to England during her brief reign from 1553 to 1558. Mary, daughter of King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, was a devout Catholic. After ascending to the throne, she tried to reverse the religious reforms that had been implemented during her half-brother's reign, Edward VI, and sought to return England to Roman Catholicism. She repealed the religious laws and reforms that had been introduced during Edward's reign, including the Act of Uniformity, which had established the Church of England as a Protestant church. Mary's efforts to restore Catholicism were met with resistance, and she became known for her persecution of Protestants. Her government burned hundreds of Protestants at the stake for heresy, leading to her lasting reputation as Bloody Mary. Mary's reign also saw England lose control of the French port of Calais, which had been held by the English for over 2 centuries. Elizabeth is briefly imprisoned in the Tower of London for her Protestant beliefs. Mary ascends to the throne. In 1558, Elizabeth's sister Mary passed away, and Elizabeth became the Queen of England. She was just 25 years old when she took the crown. England was in a state of religious turmoil, torn between Catholic and Protestant factions. You liked the video? Then, please subscribe and you will help me grow my channel. Thank you. Known for her intelligence and shrewdness, Queen Elizabeth made wise decisions that strengthened England both domestically and internationally. She encouraged exploration, leading to the expansion of English influence across the world. Elizabeth supported the arts and sciences, fostering a period of great creativity and achievement known as the Elizabethan era. Queen Elizabeth faced many challenges throughout her reign, including threats from other European powers and internal political struggle, but she never wavered. Elizabeth proved to be a master of diplomacy, using her wit and charm to outmaneuver her adversaries. She became known as the Virgin Queen because she never married or had children, which allowed her to focus entirely on her duties as queen. Elizabeth's reign was marked by stability, prosperity, and cultural growth. She was beloved by her subjects, who affectionately referred to her as Good Queen Bee. Her reign became known as the Golden Age of England. In 1588, the Spanish Armada attempted to invade England, but Queen Elizabeth I led her country to victory and saved it from occupation. They attempted to conquer England, but Queen Elizabeth I led her country to victory and saved it from occupation. In her later years, Elizabeth faced a series of personal losses. Many of her closest friends and advisors passed away, leaving her feeling lonely and melancholy. Elizabeth's health began to decline, and on March 24, 1603, at the age of 69, she peacefully passed away in Richmond Palace. She dies at the age of 69, after a reign of over 44 years. She is succeeded by her cousin, James VI of Scotland, who becomes James I of England. Elizabeth I's reign is often referred to as the Elizabethan era, a time of cultural and artistic growth in England. During her reign, England experienced a period of relative stability and prosperity, which allowed for the flourishing of the arts and sciences. The Elizabethan era saw the rise of great writers and playwrights, including William Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, and Ben Jonson, who produced some of the greatest works in the English language. Elizabethan England was also marked by the development of the English Renaissance, which was characterized by a renewed interest in classical learning, humanism, and scientific inquiry. Elizabeth I herself was a patron of the arts, and her court was renowned for its pageantry, music, and literature. Her reign also saw significant advances in exploration and trade, as English merchants and adventurers traveled to new lands and established trade networks around the world. The Elizabethan era was a time of great cultural and artistic achievement, and Elizabeth I's reign played a significant role in shaping the course of English history. Elizabeth's legacy lives on, as she is remembered as one of England's greatest monarchs. Her reign brought stability, prosperity, and a flourishing of arts and culture to the country. Elizabeth's intelligence, resilience, and determination continue to inspire generations, reminding us that even in the face of adversity, one can rise to greatness and leave an indelible mark on history. She is remembered as one of England's greatest monarchs, known for her intelligence, strength, and political savvy. Elizabeth's legacy also includes the Elizabethan settlement, which established the Church of England as a Protestant church and helped to create a sense of national identity in England. Her reign was marked by a number of challenges, including religious conflict, political intrigue, and threats from foreign powers. But Elizabeth's leadership helped to steer England through these difficulties and establish a period of relative stability and prosperity. Today, Elizabeth I is remembered as a symbol of English strength and resilience, and her reign is celebrated as a time of great achievement and progress in English history. If you like this video and wish for more,
don't forget to subscribe, and most important is to let me know which of the women impressed you most.
Cleopatra VII was the daughter of Ptolemy XII Auletes, was the Queen of Egypt from 51 to 30 BC. She was the final monarch of the Ptolemaic Kingdom and reigned during a tumultuous period in its history. Cleopatra belonged to the Ptolemaic dynasty, stemming from its founding father Ptolemy Soter, who served as a Macedonian Greek military leader and accompanied Alexander the Great. The death of Cleopatra signified the conclusion of the Hellenistic period in the Mediterranean and a shift to Roman rule. Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire, thus concluding an era that stretched back to Alexander's reign. Despite Koine Greek being her native language, she was the only Ptolemaic ruler to be fluent in Egyptian too. She took the time and effort to learn and use it proficiently. Cleopatra VII Philopator is known to be the only queen of Egypt. She was the last ruler from the Ptolemaic Kingdom that held power in this country. Her full name was Cleopatra VII Philopator, and she has gone down in history for her influential reign, the most renowned partly due to her affairs with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, as well as her fateful death. She gave birth to fraternal twins with Mark Antony. Historians describe her as a red-haired, white with light eyes. There is some debate among historians about Cleopatra's appearance, as there are few reliable contemporary descriptions of her that have survived to the present day. However, it is generally believed that Cleopatra was of Greek and Macedonian descent, and would have had a similar appearance to other people of that background during the time period. It is possible that she had fair skin and light eyes, although this cannot be confirmed with certainty. Similarly, while some ancient sources describe her as having red hair, others suggest that she had dark hair or wore wigs of various colors. Ultimately, it is difficult to say for certain what Cleopatra looked like, and it is important to approach any descriptions of her appearance with a critical eye and understanding of the limitations of historical evidence. It is true that Cleopatra died by suicide. Yes, but the reasons for her decision are more complex than just fear of being killed by the Romans. After the death of her lover Mark Antony and the defeat of their forces in the Battle of Actium, Cleopatra realized that she would be taken captive by the Roman general Octavian, later known as Augustus, and paraded through Rome in a humiliating triumph. She also feared that her children with Antony would be killed or enslaved by the Romans. Therefore, Cleopatra decided to take her own life by allowing herself to be bitten by a venomous snake. According to most accounts, it is not true that fallen leaders were routinely killed in the Colosseum by being ripped apart by lions and tigers. The Colosseum was primarily used for gladiatorial contests and other forms of public entertainment, although some executions of criminals and prisoners of war did take place there. The practice of throwing Christians to the lions in the Colosseum did occur during the reign of some Roman emperors, but there is no evidence that this was a common punishment for political or military leaders. Cleopatra did not have a child with Julius Caesar when she found out about Mark Antony's death. Cleopatra and Julius Caesar did have a son together named Caesarion, but he was born in 47 BC, several years before Mark Antony's death. By the time of Mark Antony's death in 30 BC, Caesarion was a teenager and was not present with Cleopatra at the time. After Julius Caesar's assassination in 44 BC, Cleopatra aligned herself with Mark Antony and became his lover and ally in his struggle for power with Octavian, later known as Augustus. Mark Antony and Cleopatra had 3 children together, twins named Cleopatra Selene II and Alexander Helios, and a son named Ptolemy Philadelphus. Was the reason she was smuggled into Rome in a carpet as she wanted Julius to legitimize their son. The story that Cleopatra was smuggled into Rome in a carpet to meet Julius Caesar and legitimize their son Caesarion is a popular myth, but it is not true. This story was first recorded by the Roman historian Plutarch, who lived several centuries after the events took place. Plutarch's account was based on hearsay and was likely exaggerated or invented to create a more dramatic narrative. In reality, Cleopatra did visit Rome twice during her lifetime, but there is no evidence to suggest that she was smuggled into the city in a carpet. When she first met Julius Caesar in 48 BC, She was already the Queen of Egypt and had a diplomatic entourage with her. It is also unlikely that Caesar would have agreed to meet with Cleopatra in such a clandestine and undignified manner, as he was known for his grandeur and public displays of power. The gold bust of Cleopatra is believed to have been commissioned by Mark Antony, her lover and political ally. According to historical accounts, Antony was enamored with Cleopatra and sought to honor her with a grandiose gift. The bust was said to have been created by the Greek sculptor Apollodorus of Damascus, who was renowned for his work in the Roman Empire. However, the fate of the bust is unknown. It may have been destroyed or lost over time. Despite this, the image of Cleopatra as an alluring and powerful ruler has persisted in popular culture, and her legacy continues to inspire fascination and intrigue today. How educated was Cleopatra? It is widely believed that Cleopatra was a highly educated and multilingual queen who could speak as many as 9 or 10 languages, including Greek, Latin, Egyptian, and Hebrew. This is supported by accounts from ancient historians, who described her as a skilled orator and diplomat who was able to communicate effectively with people from different cultures and backgrounds. Her impressive linguistic abilities and broad knowledge base were likely important assets in her role as a leader, allowing her to navigate the complex political landscape of the ancient Mediterranean world and forge alliances with powerful rulers like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. How did she meet Mark Antony? Cleopatra first met Mark Antony in 41 BC, shortly after the assassination of Julius Caesar. At the time, Antony was one of the most powerful men in Rome and was vying for control of the Roman Empire with Octavian, later known as Emperor Augustus. Seeking to secure her own position and protect her kingdom from Roman annexation, Cleopatra traveled to Tarsus in modern-day Turkey to meet with Antony and negotiate an alliance. According to historical accounts, Cleopatra arrived in Tarsus on a lavish barge, dressed as the goddess Aphrodite and surrounded by attendants. Her beauty, intelligence, and charm reportedly captivated Antony, and the two quickly became lovers. Their relationship was politically advantageous for both of them, as it enabled Cleopatra to gain support for her claim to the Egyptian throne and gave Antony access to Egyptian resources and troops. Despite the challenges they faced, including the disapproval of Roman society and the military threat posed by Octavian, Cleopatra and Antony remained together for several years, during which time they had 3 children together. However, their alliance was ultimately doomed by their political ambitions and the power struggles of the time. In 31 BC, Antony and Cleopatra faced off against Octavian's forces in the naval battle of Actium, which they lost decisively. Following their defeat, they fled to Egypt, where they both committed suicide the following year. Despite the tragic end to their relationship, the romance between Antony and Cleopatra has remained a popular subject in literature, art, and popular culture for centuries, and continues to captivate people's imaginations to this day. How many marriages did she have? Cleopatra VII of Egypt had a complicated romantic life and is believed to have had relationships with several powerful men of her time. However, the exact number of her marriages is a matter of historical debate. Cleopatra's first husband was likely her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, whom she married when she was around 18 years old. After a power struggle between them, Cleopatra became the sole ruler of Egypt and married her other brother, Ptolemy XIV, in a political move to secure her hold on the throne. Some historians believe that Cleopatra may have had other marriages or romantic relationships, including with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, but the details are uncertain. It's important to note that ancient Egyptian royal marriages were often more symbolic than romantic, and they were used as a way to create political alliances and secure power. Therefore, the number of Cleopatra's marriages may not be as significant as her strategic partnerships and alliances with powerful figures of her time. Top questions people ask about Cleopatra VII of Egypt, along with brief answers. What was Cleopatra's nationality? Cleopatra VII was of Greek and Macedonian ancestry, and she was a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, which was of Greek origin but ruled Egypt. Who was Cleopatra's husband? Cleopatra had multiple husbands, including her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, and her other brother, Ptolemy XIV. She also had a romantic relationship with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. How did Cleopatra die? Cleopatra VII died by suicide, allegedly by allowing herself to be bitten by an asp, a venomous snake. She did this after her ally and lover Mark Antony was defeated in battle by his rival, Octavian, who later became Emperor Augustus. What did Cleopatra look like? There are no contemporary portraits of Cleopatra VII that have survived, so her appearance is a matter of speculation. Some descriptions from ancient sources suggest that she was physically attractive and charming, with a regal bearing. What did Cleopatra do for Egypt? Cleopatra VII was a skilled politician and strategist who managed to maintain Egypt's independence and prosperity in the face of internal and external threats. She also promoted the arts and sciences, and she was known for her patronage of scholars and intellectuals. Was Cleopatra really beautiful? Cleopatra's beauty is a matter of historical debate, as there are no surviving contemporary depictions of her. However, she was known for her charisma, intelligence, and political savvy, which may have contributed to her legendary status. How old was Cleopatra when she died? Cleopatra VII died at the age of 39 or 40, depending on the historical sources. Her exact birth date is not known with certainty. Did Cleopatra speak Egyptian? It's not clear whether Cleopatra VII spoke Egyptian, as the language of the Egyptian royal court at the time was Greek. However, she was likely familiar with Egyptian culture and religion, and she was known for adopting some Egyptian customs and symbols in her rule. What was Cleopatra's role in Julius Caesar's assassination? There is no evidence to suggest that Cleopatra had any direct involvement in Julius Caesar's assassination. However, she was in Rome at the time and may have been aware of the plot. What was Cleopatra's relationship with Mark Antony like? Cleopatra and Mark Antony were allies and lovers who had a complex and tumultuous relationship. They had 3 children together and formed a political and military alliance against Octavian, but they were eventually defeated in battle and committed suicide together. Please subscribe and you will be part of the growth of my channel. The elusive origins and childhood of Queen Cleopatra. Queen Cleopatra has been shrouded in mystery for centuries. Her life has been the subject of many books and movies. But the details of her childhood and origins remain elusive. We will also examine how much of these theories are based on fact or fiction. By delving into this ancient history, we can gain a better understanding of one of history's most famous queens. Cleopatra was of Greek heritage, belonging to the Ptolemaic dynasty which reigned over Egypt following the passing of Alexander the Great. Ptolemy XII Auletes, her father, was renowned for his luxurious living and poor financial planning. During her upbringing, Cleopatra was exposed to a range of concepts such as mathematics, philosophy, and languages. This provided her with an immense foundation from which she could draw knowledge from. She also learned about Egyptian culture and religion, which helped her to gain the support of the Egyptian people later in life. Despite her privileged upbringing, Cleopatra faced many challenges, including the exile of her father and the political turmoil that followed. Her childhood experiences likely shaped her determination and resilience, which would serve her well as she navigated the complex political landscape of ancient Egypt. Did she kill her brothers? There is no concrete evidence to suggest that Cleopatra VII of Egypt killed her brothers, Ptolemy XIII and Ptolemy XIV. However, there are accounts in ancient sources that describe a power struggle between Cleopatra and her brothers, and it's possible that she played a role in their deaths. According to some historical accounts, Ptolemy XIII initially ruled Egypt with Cleopatra, but they soon became embroiled in a power struggle. Cleopatra was eventually forced to flee Egypt, but she returned with the help of Julius Caesar and defeated Ptolemy's forces in battle. Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile during the conflict, although it's not clear whether this was intentional or accidental. After Ptolemy XIII's death, Cleopatra married her other brother, Ptolemy XIV, who was younger and less assertive. Ptolemy XIV died a few years later, possibly of natural causes, although some accounts suggest that Cleopatra may have had a hand in his death. It's worth noting that ancient Egyptian royal families often engaged in political intrigue and violence to secure their power. The exact details of Cleopatra's role in her brother's deaths are difficult to determine with certainty. What is the untrue innuendo or gossip about her? Cleopatra VII of Egypt was a legendary figure in history, and over the centuries, many rumors, myths, and falsehoods have been spread about her. Here are some of the most common untrue gossips about her. Cleopatra was extremely promiscuous. There is no evidence to support the idea that Cleopatra was particularly promiscuous. While she did have romantic relationships with several powerful men, including Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, these relationships were likely motivated by political and strategic considerations as much as personal attraction. Was Cleopatra a seductress who used her beauty to manipulate men? Similar to the previous point, there is little evidence to suggest that Cleopatra relied solely on her physical appearance to influence men. She was known for her intelligence, charisma, and political acumen, and she was respected by many of her contemporaries as a skilled ruler and strategist. Was Cleopatra an Egyptian? While Cleopatra was the last pharaoh of Egypt and ruled the country for many years, she was not ethnically Egyptian. She was of Greek and Macedonian ancestry, and she was a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, which was of Greek origin but ruled Egypt. Was Cleopatra a witch who used magic to control her enemy? There is no evidence to support the idea that Cleopatra was a practitioner of magic or used it to control her enemies. This idea may have been spread by her enemies in an attempt to discredit her and undermine her power. Cleopatra committed suicide because she was heartbroken over Mark Antony's death. While Cleopatra and Mark Antony were lovers and allies, it's unlikely that Cleopatra's suicide was solely motivated by her grief over his death. She likely saw suicide as a way to preserve her dignity and avoid being taken captive by Octavian, who later became Emperor Augustus, after her defeat in battle. Did she have any surviving children? Yes, Cleopatra VII of Egypt had 4 children, 3 of whom survived to adulthood. Her first child, a son named Caesarion, was born in 47 BC and was widely believed to be the son of Julius Caesar. After Caesar's assassination, Cleopatra returned to Egypt with Caesarion and ruled jointly with him as her co-regent. Cleopatra later had 3 children with Mark Antony, 2 sons named Alexander Helius and Ptolemy Philadelphus, and a daughter named Cleopatra Selene II. All 3 children survived to adulthood and were raised by Cleopatra after Mark Antony's death. After the defeat of Cleopatra and Mark Antony in the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, their children were taken captive by Octavian, later Emperor Augustus. Caesarion was executed, but Alexander Helius, Ptolemy Philadelphus and Cleopatra Selene II were spared and sent to live in Rome, where they were raised by Octavia, Mark Antony's former wife. Did Cleopatra have any sisters? Yes, Cleopatra VII of Egypt had at least 2 sisters. The first was named Berenice IV, who briefly ruled Egypt as queen in between Cleopatra's first and second reigns. Berenice IV was the daughter of Cleopatra's father, Ptolemy XII Auletes, and a different wife than Cleopatra's mother. The second sister was named Arsinoe IV, and she was the younger half-sister of Cleopatra. After Ptolemy XII's death, a power struggle ensued between Cleopatra and Arsinoe IV over the throne of Egypt. Arsinoe IV was briefly able to assert her claim to the throne with the help of the Roman general Gnaeus Pompey. But she was eventually defeated and captured by Julius Caesar. Caesar spared Arsinoe IV's life and allowed her to live in exile in Rome. But she was later executed on the orders of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, who saw her as a potential rival to their own power. Are there any known descendants? It is not definitively known whether there are any direct descendants of Cleopatra VII of Egypt. There are some claims of descent from her through her daughter, Cleopatra Selene II, who married Juba II of Numidia, a client king of Rome. However, these claims are difficult to verify and are subject to debate among historians. There have been some efforts to try to trace Cleopatra's genetic lineage through modern DNA analysis. But these attempts have been largely unsuccessful due to the limited availability of genetic material from her or her known relatives. While there is some speculation about the possibility of direct descendants of Cleopatra, there is no concrete evidence to support these claims at this time. The enigmatic Cleopatra, master manipulator or misunderstood queen. Was Cleopatra a master manipulator? There is much debate among historians about whether Cleopatra VII of Egypt was a master manipulator or not. Some argue that she was a skilled politician and strategist, while others believe that her reputation as a manipulator has been exaggerated over time. Here are a few facts about Cleopatra that may shed light on her character. Cleopatra was the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt and ruled from 51 BC to 30 BC. She was known for her intellect and spoke several languages, including Greek, Egyptian, and Latin. Cleopatra was a skilled diplomat and formed political alliances with powerful men, including Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. She was also known for her beauty and charisma, which she used to her advantage in her political dealings. Cleopatra was accused of murdering her siblings in order to secure her place on the throne, although some historians dispute this claim. She was also accused of using her romantic relationships with Caesar and Antony to gain political power, although her true intentions are still debated. Based on these facts, it is clear that Cleopatra was a highly intelligent and politically savvy leader, who was skilled at forming alliances and navigating the complex political landscape of her time. However, whether she was a manipulator or not is open to interpretation. Some argue that her actions were necessary to protect her kingdom and secure her position as pharaoh, while others view her as a ruthless and ambitious leader who was willing to do whatever it took to maintain her power. Cleopatra's true character and motives may never be fully understood, but her legacy as one of the most enigmatic and fascinating figures in history will continue to fascinate us for centuries to come. Was she liked and loved by her country, Egypt? The historical record suggests that Cleopatra VII of Egypt was a polarizing figure in her own time, and that her popularity among the people of Egypt was mixed. On the one hand, Cleopatra was seen by some as a symbol of national pride and resistance against foreign domination. She portrayed herself as the embodiment of the goddess Isis and was known for her extravagant displays of wealth and power, which some Egyptians admired. On the other hand, Cleopatra was also viewed by many as a foreign interloper who was more interested in preserving her own power than in serving the interests of her people. She was criticized for her alliance with Rome and her relationships with powerful Roman men, which some saw as a betrayal of Egypt's sovereignty. Overall, the degree to which Cleopatra was liked or loved by the people of Egypt is difficult to determine with certainty. It is likely that her popularity among different groups of Egyptians varied widely depending on their political and social affiliations, and the historical record is colored by bias and propaganda from both her supporters and her detractors. Was Egypt Aphrodite or Hermaphrodite's capital? Egypt was not the capital of either Aphrodite or Hermaphrodite, as those are Greek deities, and Egypt has its own rich history and pantheon of gods and goddesses. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the capital city was Memphis, which was the center of political and religious power during the Old Kingdom period. Later, during the New Kingdom period, the capital shifted to Thebes, modern-day Luxor, which became the center of Egypt's powerful empire. The ancient Egyptians worshipped a wide variety of gods and goddesses, including Ra, Osiris, Isis, Horus, and many others, each of whom held different roles and significance within the mythology and religious practices of ancient Egypt. Please subscribe and you will be part of the growth of my channel. Quirky facts about Cleopatra. Here are some quirky facts about Cleopatra. Cleopatra was known for her love of perfumes and would often douse herself in fragrances before meeting with important people. She was rumored to have invented a type of lipstick made from crushed beetles and ants, which was used to give her lips a bright red color. Cleopatra was also known for her love of luxury and would often bathe in milk to keep her skin soft and smooth. She was a skilled linguist and could speak at least 9 different languages, including Egyptian, Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. Cleopatra was said to have a pet leopard named Arrow, which she would often take with her on hunting expeditions. She was known for her dramatic fashion sense and would often wear extravagant jewelry and intricate hairstyles. Cleopatra was also a prolific writer and poet, and is said to have authored several works of literature during her lifetime. She was a skilled mathematician and is credited with inventing a water clock, which used the flow of water to measure time. Cleopatra was the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt, and her rule brought an end to the Ptolemaic dynasty, which had successfully governed Egypt for 3 centuries. She famously had relationships with both Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, and their love affairs have been the subject of countless books, plays, and movies over the years. Cleopatra's most famous question is what was in her bath water. One of the quirky facts about Cleopatra is that she was known to bathe in milk. According to ancient sources, Cleopatra would fill her bath with fresh donkey milk, which was believed to have skin-softening properties. It is said that she would also add honey and various essential oils to the milk bath to further enhance its benefits for her skin. However, it's worth noting that these accounts come from ancient sources and may not be entirely accurate. Nonetheless, Cleopatra's milk baths have become a popular legend and are often cited as an example of her luxurious lifestyle and beauty rituals. Did anybody during the time they knew Cleopatra personally wrote anything about her? Yes, several writers during Cleopatra's lifetime wrote about her. The Greek historian Plutarch, who lived in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, wrote a biography of Antony in which he included many anecdotes about Cleopatra. Another Greek historian named Dio Cassius, who lived in the 3rd century AD, also wrote about Cleopatra in his histories of Rome. The Roman poet Horace wrote a famous poem about Cleopatra's defeat at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. Additionally, Cleopatra herself was a prolific writer and scholar who wrote books on topics such as medicine, cosmetics, and alchemy, although none of her original works have survived to the present day. Overall, while much of what we know about Cleopatra today comes from later sources, there were many writers during her lifetime who wrote about her and her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Plutarch, how he knew so much about Cleopatra. Plutarch did not personally know Cleopatra. He was born about 100 years after Cleopatra's death and never met her. However, Plutarch did have access to earlier historical accounts of Cleopatra's life and reign, as well as to other sources such as the memoirs of Cleopatra's contemporaries. Plutarch also traveled extensively throughout the Roman Empire, and had access to libraries and archives where he could have researched Cleopatra's life and times. Based on these sources, Plutarch was able to write a detailed and vivid account of Cleopatra's life, which has been influential in shaping our understanding of her legacy. Did she practice and enjoyed alchemy and chemistry? Yes, Cleopatra was known to have a keen interest in alchemy and chemistry. In fact, she was known to have her own personal alchemist, a man named Zosimus, who was said to have taught her the secrets of alchemy. Cleopatra was fascinated by the idea of turning base metals into gold. And she was also interested in the medicinal properties of various substances. According to some ancient sources, Cleopatra even conducted her own experiments with alchemy and chemistry, and she was known to have written a number of treatises on these subjects. Although none of her original works have survived to the present day, it's worth noting that in Cleopatra's time, alchemy was not seen as a separate discipline from chemistry. And many of the early alchemists were also interested in practical applications of their work, such as developing medicines and cosmetics. Was she a genius in the art of war? While Cleopatra is known for her political and diplomatic abilities, she was not necessarily considered a genius in the art of war. In fact, there is little evidence to suggest that she had any particular military training or expertise. Instead, Cleopatra relied on her intelligence, charisma, and tactical acumen to navigate the complex political landscape of the ancient world and secure her power. She was known for her shrewdness and her ability to form alliances with powerful figures, such as Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, which helped her to maintain her position as Queen of Egypt. However, it should be noted that Cleopatra did play an active role in some of the military campaigns of her time, and she was known to have personally led troops into battle on occasion. While she may not have been a military genius in the traditional sense, Cleopatra was a skilled and resourceful leader who was able to wield power effectively in a time of great upheaval and change. Was she an outstanding businesswoman, especially in reference to King Herod? Cleopatra is not typically known for her business acumen, and there is little evidence to suggest that she was involved in significant business dealings during her reign. However, she did have a complex and often fraught relationship with King Herod of Judea, who was a powerful figure in the region during her time. Herod was known for his wealth and his business savvy, and he was often involved in commercial ventures such as trade and construction. At various points in their relationship, Cleopatra and Herod both sought to use each other for their own political and economic gain. For example, Herod was known to have borrowed money from Cleopatra's court to finance his building projects, and he also sought to secure her support in his efforts to expand his territory and influence. However, their relationship was also marked by conflict and mistrust, and they were known to have been bitter rivals at times. Overall, while Cleopatra may have had some limited involvement in business matters, she is not typically remembered as a prominent businesswoman, and her legacy is more closely tied to her political and cultural achievements. Cleopatra was a skilled diplomat and strategist who was able to navigate the complex political landscape of the ancient world and maintain her power in the face of significant challenges and threats. She was also a patron of the arts and sciences, and she is remembered for her support of scholarship and culture in Egypt. While her relationship with King Herod was certainly a significant aspect of her reign, it is not typically viewed as a defining characteristic of her legacy. Instead, Cleopatra is remembered as a powerful and influential figure who left a lasting mark on history. Why did Cleopatra have so many coins printed with her likeness? Cleopatra had many coins printed with her likeness for a variety of reasons. One of the primary reasons was to establish her legitimacy as a ruler and to reinforce her authority over her subjects. Coins were an important form of currency in the ancient world, and they were often used to spread political messages and propaganda. By placing her image on coins, Cleopatra was able to promote her image as a powerful and legitimate ruler, and to reinforce her authority over her subjects. Another reason why Cleopatra had so many coins printed with her likeness was to promote her political agenda and to advance her interests. Coins were a powerful tool for disseminating information and propaganda, and Cleopatra was known to have used them to promote her alliances, to assert her authority over her territories, and to advance her political goals. For example, she minted coins that depicted her in the guise of the goddess Isis, which helped to reinforce her status as a divine ruler and to promote her image as a powerful and influential figure. Overall, the use of coins to promote her image and political agenda was a common practice among ancient rulers, and Cleopatra was no exception. By using coins to spread her image and message, she was able to establish her legitimacy and authority, promote her political goals, and leave a lasting impression on history. Today, the coins that bear her image are highly valued by collectors and historians alike, as they provide a glimpse into the life and legacy of one of the most powerful and influential women in history. Was Cleopatra overweight, and did she have a bigger than normal gluteus maximus? There is no definitive evidence that suggests Cleopatra was overweight or had a larger than normal gluteus maximus. In fact, most depictions of Cleopatra from the time period show her as being slim and graceful, with delicate features. While it is true that in some later depictions of her, particularly during the Renaissance period, she is depicted as having a fuller figure, it is important to note that these depictions are not necessarily accurate or based on historical fact. Furthermore, ancient Egyptians placed a great deal of importance on physical beauty and personal grooming, and it is unlikely that someone in Cleopatra's position would have neglected her appearance. Additionally, the fact that she was known for her intelligence, political savvy, and charm suggests that her physical appearance was not the primary focus of her power or influence. In any case, it is important to approach historical figures with respect and sensitivity, and to avoid making unfounded assumptions about their appearance or physical characteristics. In those days, a large gluteus maximus was considered a gift from the goddess Aphrodite in Greek culture. While it is true that the ancient Greeks placed a great deal of importance on physical beauty and athleticism, including a well-shaped body, there is no concrete evidence to suggest that a large gluteus maximus was considered a gift from the goddess Aphrodite in Greek culture. In fact, the ideal body type for men and women in ancient Greece was quite different from modern beauty standards, with a greater emphasis on balance, symmetry, and proportion rather than specific features such as a large gluteus maximus. It is also important to remember that Cleopatra was not Greek, but rather an Egyptian queen who lived during the Hellenistic period, when Egypt was heavily influenced by Greek culture. While it is possible that some aspects of Greek beauty ideas may have influenced Egyptian culture during this time, it is unlikely that a large gluteus maximus would have been specifically associated with the goddess Aphrodite in Egyptian culture. In general, it is important to approach historical and cultural topics with an open mind and a willingness to learn, rather than relying on assumptions or stereotypes. While her story may forever remain shrouded in mystery, one thing is certain: Cleopatra's legacy continues to captivate and fascinate us, leaving us to ponder whether she was truly a master manipulator or simply a misunderstood queen. Please subscribe
And
you will
thank
be
you
part
for
of the
watching
growth
our
of my channel.
videos. Please comment, and that will let me know if I should do more videos like this. Tap the bell and you will be alerted of additional videos.